Hello lads, ladies, gents, laddettes, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. Before jumping into things real quick, I just wanted to let you know I did receive a copy of this game for free for review and content creation. So with that out of the way, let's get into this review. As much as I like to be as positive as possible about games in general, I don't often claim for a game that I have played to be one of the best experiences I've ever had. Yet, at least at the time of me writing this, today's game, Promise Mascot Agency, I can say with full confidence is my game of the year. And it has easily made it onto my all-time favorite games list. This indie title from the small team at Kaizen Gameworks aims to be a mix of all-time classics like the Yakuza series, Pokemon, and even Persona, all the while having a very heavy influence of Manzai comedy, a Japanese comedic style that's based around the straight man and the unhinged character, which is shown very obviously through our two main characters in Michi and Pinky. But more on our lovable idiots in a second, as I want to get into the overview of the story. Now, there might be some minor spoilers here, but I am going to refrain from spoiling anything major if possible. And I say this because this is a game you need to experience yourself. Also, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm trying to pronounce Japanese names and I am Australian and I can barely pronounce normal English. The setup for Promise Mascot Agency follows a Yakuza lieutenant named Michi, also known as the Janitor, a part of the Shimazu family that are attempting to join the Nakamura Alliance to stop dealing with all the infighting of all the different families. Ordered to be in charge of securing the 12 billion yen tribute to the Alliance, Michi is jumped by a rival family, stealing the money, leaving both Michi and the Shimazu family disgraced. As a form of tribute, Michi cuts off his pinky, which would have been traditional. However, it is revealed that this is not going to be enough to make up for what has happened. Forced to come up with a plan, the matriarch has Michi fake his own death in order to rebuild an old rundown mascot agency in order to earn the money to pay back what they owe, and hopefully redeem both himself and the family. Agreeing to this, Michi is sent off to the cursed town of Kasomachi, where it is said that any male Yakuza that steps foot there is going to die. Upon arriving, Michi is met with the best girl in all the fiction, Pinky, as they immediately start working together to rebuild the agency, the town, and eventually get Pinky elected as mayor. This is a pretty quick overview of the story. There's definitely a lot more complexity throughout, and it has its fair share of twists and turns. However, as I said, this is a game I definitely recommend experiencing for yourself. Moving on from the story, let's jump into the core gameplay loop and what you can expect when you actually play Promise Mascot Agency. At its core, it's an open world management game mixed with a collectathon. If that sounds a bit strange, don't worry, it is, at least at first. Once you're in the thick of it, this odd choice of gameplay mechanics starts to make a lot more sense. It might be a bit confusing, but I will do my best to explain. So, as outlined in the story, we need to pay back the 12 billion yen. In order to do this, we need to run the agency. We'll need to recruit mascots and send them out for jobs. Simple enough so far. Simply select the job and send the mascot you wish to send, and they go off and do it. You can also send the mascot with an item in order to help out with the job. Typically, these will give you a percentage chance of certain things happening, such as regaining energy or not requiring help while out on the job. Because these mascots are considered rejects, they don't tend to be perfect, so mistakes are going to happen, and this is usually when a mascot will call for help. You'll have the choice to either help or you can ignore it. If you choose to ignore it, they will still complete the job, however you will not get as much of a reward at the end. So logically, you are going to want to help in most cases. Upon agreeing to help a mascot, a short cutscene will play out, explaining the situation that the mascot has found themselves in. Typically, these situations are quite weird and wacky, but somehow relatable. You are then tasked with helping them overcome this issue. This is done through a card battle system, using what are called hero cards. These scenarios can be one of several different types, and in order to defeat it, you need to use the hero cards that can do the most damage to that specific type. So if a scenario, for example, has cogwheels for the health bar, you need to use a hero card that has the biggest number next to the cogwheels to deal the most damage. Basically, you just match the two. However, it's not as simple as that, because you'll only have so many cards in your hand at the start of the battle, along with a timer, and also a move limit, meaning you have to be careful about what you play. However, some cards have some bonus effects, such as drawing more cards or even regaining moves. The cards themselves also have levels to them, but I'll explain that a little bit later when it comes to the collecting side of things, because it will make more sense there. Just know, typically the higher the level, the more damage you do, so you want to get the best cards possible. Also, higher level cards mean you don't need to rely on RNG as much. By the late game, you're going to be pretty confident when it comes to these battles. However, if you do lose, there's no real harm done. You just don't get a bigger reward at the end of the mascot's job. It's just a bonus. Also, it's not guaranteed that you need to help a mascot every single time. Once you have the right items, you would barely have to help ever. I would consistently send out 20 plus mascots and maybe only have to help once or twice at most. Sometimes I didn't have to help at all. It's a really well balanced system that allows me to focus on the other aspects of the game more so than just this one minigame. Going back to the management, this is where we also have to worry about the mascot's energy and their life satisfaction. Energy is pretty straightforward. Once they run out, they can't do any more jobs, so you need to wait for it to replenish. Life satisfaction is basically mini stories for each individual mascot. They'll have 3 stages that you need to complete. This is done via either sending them out on missions or just continuing the story. The best part about the life satisfaction missions though is you get to learn more about these mascots and their history, and you get to see them grow. Using my favourite Tofu as an example, early on they are a giant crybaby. However, by the end they're a giant crybaby but with tears of joy. There are other aspects to managing the agency as well, such as outsourcing and upgrades. Outsourcing requires you to find contact information for mascots outside of the town and then getting them to work for you in different locations. These bring in a passive income, and it's a really nice way to help offset the game's bills. Because at the end of the day, it costs money to run the agency, so make sure you have enough money there. Otherwise you'll be like me and absolutely dead broke on the second and third day. As for the upgrades, they're pretty straightforward. Moving into the collectathon elements, this is really the rest of the game, in which you'll be partaking in this while your mascots are out on jobs. Basically, you're driving around in Mitchie's beloved K-Truck. You travel around the town and you look for mascots, shrines, CDs, townfolk's lost items, and several other things, meaning you'll have plenty of things to do to stay busy while your mascots are out at work. Not only is there an abundance of things to find, but it really does let you take in this game's amazing presentation that we will get into shortly. However, it gets better than just driving around in a K-Truck, because once you find the mechanic, you actually get the ability to upgrade, from the ability to pick up trash for boost, which also allows you to help clean up the town, to then being able to float on the water as a boat, and then even transform into a plane, allowing you to glide around. But you might ask, how does this actually help in the management side of things? Well, making sure to meet all the locals definitely opens things up, because not only does it get you more jobs, it will unlock more hero cards. It also will allow you to upgrade your hero cards if you do everything you can for that person. Furthermore, if you do all the shrines, you'll gain more passive bonuses, such as more fans, more money, and more energy recovery. Every side collectible has its own reward and is worth doing. Essentially, the game just rewards you for playing. It's really, really nice. And the best part is, it's not forced on you. Sure, there are certain things you do need to do because it'll be story related, but for the most part, you don't need to find every side collectible. It's only if you want to. You get rewarded for doing it, but you don't need those rewards to finish the game. It's a really well integrated system. Now, there are other gameplay elements, but some of them are related to the story, so I'm going to avoid going into detail about them. Just know that the debates with Pinky and the mayor are great fun, and it really shows off the comedy that this game can deliver. As amazing as the story and gameplay is, what really elevates this game for me is its presentation. It's just on another level, and that's from pretty much every aspect. Whether it be the writing, the visuals, or the absolutely mind-blowing OST, there is nothing to fault here. I've already mentioned how I love this game's story and the writing in general, but the voice acting elevates it to another level. Holy crap, is it incredible. Now, I'm going to butcher some names, but the team at Kaizen Gameworks managed to get some of the best in my opinion. From Takuya Karuta, aka Kiryu from fucking Yakuza, Ayano Shibuya, who played Pura in both The Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and in my opinion deserves the best voice actress performance of this year, Suiri, the legend behind cult classics like Deadly Premonition, Shuhei Yoshida, Eri Saito, and many more. I am still in absolute awe at the absolute incredible cast that they've managed to get together. Everyone nails their role. But no one nails their role as much as this game's composer, Alpha Chrome Yeo, in which, shout out to ACY, absolute legend, in which I actually have an interview with ACY coming out in about a week and a half from the release of this video, if all goes according to plan. Subtle plug, I'm good at this, I swear. The soundtrack is so good and fits this game so perfectly, it is by far the best soundtrack of this year. Also, if you're interested in how the soundtrack was made, ACY actually has a video over on the Kaizen Gameworks YouTube channel explaining a bit of the behind the scenes. It's really cool, so I recommend watching that. Tying everything together is this game's phenomenal visuals, aiming to replicate the Showa era, which is roughly from the mid-1920s up until the late 80s of Japan. This game nails what it is aiming for. The visuals and aesthetic of this game are incredible incredibly charming in all the right ways. The world is dirty and gritty where it needs to be, yet serene and beautiful in other locations. There is nothing in this game that feels like a wasted effort, and I cannot recommend this game enough to anybody, especially if you're a fan of RPGs or just unique games in general. Promised Mascot Agency is nothing short of perfection in my book. It is a game you must play. Now, normally at the end of my indie video reviews, I'll have a little section where I've asked the developer a handful of questions and relay those answers back to you. However, today I'm not doing that because I actually got to sit down with the team at Kaizen Gameworks for an interview, in which that interview will go live in a couple of days from now. So if you're interested in seeing that, stay tuned. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this review of Promised Mascot Agency, which is my #1 game this year. I've had a few indie games surprise me this year, such as Dawnfolk, Deck of Haunts, Craft Day, and a couple others. I keep finding myself coming back to them time and time again. So if you have a favourite indie game that you've played this year, let me know. I'd love to check it out. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit the subscribe button. And if you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi, Patreon, or YouTube memberships like these lovely people here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Join the Discord. Stay safe out there. Bye.